Now, in Rinchen Changchup's commentary, which part of it is translated in this book at the front. And the part translated that is very helpful is Rinchen Changchup. What he does is that he tells us that the Vajra Statements in the auxiliary chapter, in the miscellaneous chapter, chapter 8, which we won't, well, at least for now, we won't go through that chapter 8, that's those statements there, because this commentary doesn't cover the statements in chapter 8. But what Rinchen Changchup does is that he matches those statements there and say that, so when you're reading statement like statement 6.1, I'm just randomly giving an example or making up an example. You say, so when you read statement 6.1, then statement 8.2 and 8.3 are also relevant. You should read those as well. So for chapter 7, only one statement from chapter 8 is linked to a statement in chapter 7, which is this next statement that we're going to look at, statement 7. So what is statement 7 then? Statement 7 is translated in this book as the resolve of bodhicitta exists even at the final stage of Buddhahood. The resolve of bodhicitta exists even at the final stage, on the final stage of Buddhahood. So, this is said in response to those who say, once the job is done, right? So we've seen this theme, right? Once the job is done, then you don't need those workers anymore, so to say. You can fire them. So the raft that takes you to the other shore, once you arrive at the other shore, you don't need the raft anymore. But Kyobpa says, no, it's not like that. Yes, in some other context you could say that, but here, with regards to the resolve for Buddhahood, the resolve for awakening, in other words, bodhicitta, it doesn't cease to exist when you arrive at the Buddha state. So in particular, what these people, or what this more general idea is, or the problem with this more general idea, that once you are at the state of Buddha, then bodhicitta is no longer there and no longer necessary. The problem with that understanding that Jigten Sumgon is concerned to point out is the problem of potentially thinking that Buddhas no longer are involved in causes. So once you get the result, cause don't need anymore. All right? Once you get the result of Buddhahood, what is the cause of Buddhahood? Bodhicitta, really, right? Bodhicitta is the direct cause of Buddhahood. And what is bodhicitta? Bodhicitta is on the basis of boundless impartial love and compassion for all beings, resolving to attain perfect awakening for them, right? In a nutshell, when we say bodhicitta, especially relative bodhicitta, that's what we're saying. On the basis of love and compassion, unbiased, impartial, boundless love and compassion for all beings, we resolve to become Buddha. And that resolve to become Buddha involves wisdom, because we understand only a Buddha free from all confusion, all obscurations, all mental defilements can truly and fully be beneficial to both self and other. So this is the cause, right? So this is the cause for Buddhahood. So while in another context, it seems to make sense to say, once you achieve the result, you don't need the cause anymore, right? The general view. Here, Kyobpa says, no, not like that. Because if you think a little bit more about it, right? What you're saying is, oh, Buddhas can now abandon the cause. What is the cause? Impartial, boundless love and compassion for all beings as a motivating force for everything you do. How can that cause be abandoned once you are in the state of Buddha? No, right? That cause is not abandoned. It's not gone. That cause continues to exist at the level of Buddhahood, at the state of Buddhahood, at the stage of Buddhahood. That cause is that commitment to benefit beings in the most meaningful way. Why do we want to benefit beings? Not because we're afraid someone might criticize us if we don't. Not because if we benefit beings, beings will be nice to us. But we benefit beings because of love and compassion. Yeah, because there can be so many reasons, why we want to benefit beings. So that they'll be on my side when I need them. So that I'll be well-liked. So that I have, 10 million followers on, Twitter. So that I'll win popularity contests. No. Solely because of unbounded love and compassion. So that cause, we should not think at the state of Buddha, that cause is gone, finished. So that's the main point in statement 7. Yes, go ahead, May.
In some practices, we base that on, for example, the aspirations or the vows that Buddhas have made. For example, Amitabha's vow to draw us into his pure land.
Yes.
So how does that fit into this this aspect of bodhicitta that continues or doesn't continue?
Fits perfectly, right? According to what Kyobpa says, right? So Amitabha continues to draw us to his pure land. Yes. And so now Rinchen Chantu says in chapter 8, in the miscellaneous chapter, he says there is one statement there that will further illuminate this statement. And it's this statement 846, the last statement in chapter 8. And that statement is, what is Buddha? Buddha is the manifestation of bodhicitta. Buddhas are none other than the embodiment sometimes translated as embodiment, sometimes translated as manifestation. Buddhas are the embodiment of bodhicitta. So how can bodhicitta be lost, gone, finished at Buddhahood? Not gone, not finished, but manifest as Buddhahood. So Buddhas are none other than the resolve to be Buddha for the sake of others. So now the method that we use is no longer just a means to an end. The method itself is. So it goes back to that theme that I have been bringing up from time to time, right? If we have a very linear view of our practice, a strictly linear view of our practice would be, we practice in order to become Buddhas. Yes, it's valuable to think in that way, but we should not become too linear, because we should also understand. And what are we practicing? What we are practicing isn't like something separate from what we want to be. Yeah, in certain understandings of Dharma practice, this might sound like just kind of, as they say, academic, meaning in an insulting way. Oh, that's just academic. But it does address some kind of subtle things. Sometimes we think, I'm only practicing love and compassion because that's the only way to get to where I want to go. Once I'm there, I don't need these things anymore. Or for example, the issue of like disciplined conduct, Shila, often translated as ethical or ethics, moral ethics. But I think it's more than moral ethics. Now I prefer the translation, disciplined conduct. Disciplined conduct covers moral ethics, but beyond moral ethics. It covers a wider range. It's talking about how we conduct ourselves in a way that not only is morally, ethically blameless, but also in a way that is beautiful and attractive to others looking for relief from suffering. Therefore, we are disciplined. Therefore, disciplined conduct. So, observing disciplined conduct, training in disciplined conduct is not merely, like the necessary things that you have to do to become Buddhas. And once you have become Buddhas, you can throw all of that out the window and just behave whatever way. At that point, you say, I will just be natural. Right? Then we misunderstand the stories of the activities of the Mahasiddhas, and we think, oh, especially those who like Tibetan Buddhism, some of us, not all of us, we think, oh, we can behave like the Mahasiddhas. And then we think of these stories of Mahasiddhas going to a bar, drinking, as they like, and consorting with all kinds of people, having lots of girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever. Then we think, oh, we are now Buddhas, So we only behave ourselves so that we can get in the door. That's a very linear, instrumental view of what we're practicing. Like what we're practicing is just what we temporarily have to do until we get in. Once we get in, don't need those things anymore. So this statement is concerned about that. So it's saying no. And same with meditation. We have this idea that, I need to meditate. Why? So that I can get rid of mental defilements. And then once I'm Buddha, no need to meditate anymore. But we see, that actually the Buddha's natural state is to be in the meditative state. So not only to meditate to become Buddha, but to meditate because Buddhas naturally meditate. Not only to train in disciplined conduct in order to become Buddha, but Buddhas are disciplined. Not only to cultivate love and compassion, because that can take you to Buddhahood, but Buddhahood is love and compassion perfected. So bodhicitta should not be thought of as simply a means to an end. Similarly, elsewhere in that discussion on in one Vajra statement under the secret mantra chapter, Kyobpa Rinpoche says, the principle of generation stage, the principles involved in practicing generation or creation stage, where you identify with a Buddha. I myself is medicine Buddha, blue in color, la la la, It says all the principles in this creation stage are primordially so. Technical term, primordially established. Has always been like that. And that statement is to counteract those who say the creation stage is just a made-up thing, a contrivance that the Buddhas devise to trick us into becoming Buddhists, or to help us trick ourselves into becoming Buddhists. Jigten Sumgon says, no, the principles of the creation stage is based on the fact that we are Buddhists. So it's not a contrivance. In fact, what is a contrivance? What is a false, endeavor, and therefore pointless endeavor, is the opposite of generation stage, which is fixating on ordinariness, fixating on samsara, fixating on samsaric identity. No matter how much time, how much effort we place on fixating on samsaric existence, samsaric identity, you can never bring it to perfection, because by definition, samsara is flawed. So deity yoga might seem kind of artificial to us. Kyobpa says, actually, samsaric yoga is even more artificial. It's even more unnatural. So let's look at Khenpo Kunpal's commentary for statement 7. Even on the stage of Buddhahood, where the abandonments and realizations. So at every stage of that path, it involves abandoning specific types of mental defilements, confusions, and realizations of specific good qualities, attainment of specific good qualities. So even on the stage of Buddhahood, where the abandonments and realizations of the stages and the paths are now final, complete, finalized, the Buddhas have attained awakening into the essence of bodhicitta of great equality, which has the nature of emptiness and compassion. And so here, emptiness referring to ultimate bodhicitta, and compassion referring to relative bodhicitta. Therefore, their attained bodhicitta has not degenerated, has not disappeared, has not ceased to exist. Instead, they have an immeasurable manifestation of skillful means for the sake of others. Instead, what has happened to this bodhicitta, now this bodhicitta has become the Buddha activities. In that sense, it's saying the Buddha activities are real. Thus, the resolve of bodhicitta also exists for Buddhas, repeatedly in different ways. So Nagarjuna said, I bow to the actual embodiment of bodhicitta, the glorious holder of Vajra. Meaning those who have attained Buddhahood, they are the embodiment of bodhicitta. And Maitreya said, the resolve of bodhicitta on the bodhisattva stages is divided into 4. Inspiration and pure altruistic intention, the fully ripened, which is asserted to be another type, and likewise the abandonment of obscurations. And so here this quote from Maitreya is to show, particularly the last one, the abandonment of obscurations. And so here Maitreya says, the resolve for bodhicitta is not just the first 3, which is at first you're inspired, then your inspiration turns into pure altruistic intention, and then fully ripened. So this is like the very moment before you become Buddha, and then the 4th, even at the state of Buddha, which is the abandonment of obscurations. So the obscurations have been abandoned, the antidote does not cease. It is said in the meeting of the Father and Son Sutra, the heroes, meaning Buddhas, are skilled in means, skilled in methods. They are loving towards all sentient beings, and in order to completely mature sentient beings, to ripen sentient beings, to help sentient beings, these great heroes display various emanations. You, victorious one, have displayed the attainment of Buddhahood 800 million times. However, you are still free from the thought of having attained enough, and you still engage your mind in supreme bodhicitta. You purified the Buddha lands of 61 billion universes. In that way, you are skillful, capable one. Victorious one, you are known by all the Buddhas. Still, you generate the resolve of bodhicitta freshly and fully display it here and there. Still again, you, the guide, will display many Buddha forms. So this sutra, clearly shows, Buddhas are unceasingly generating bodhicitta. So the point is like our generation of bodhicitta is also something natural. We need to keep reminding ourselves that. It is said in the Explanation Tantra, Victory of Non-Duality, to tame the various sentient beings, the Buddhas generate the resolve of bodhicitta again and again, thereby training on the path. Since their display of manifold deeds is uninterrupted, they do generate the resolve of bodhicitta. Since their stainless minds are always the self-cognizing, unimpeded wisdom, they are not stopped and not born. However, for the sake of sentient beings, they wander around and about. Bodhicitta is inexhaustible. Therefore, Buddha activities are uninterrupted. So the cause and effect of bodhicitta and Buddhahood is unending. So therefore, we should always generate bodhicitta unendingly and not think, oh, no need to generate now. Yeah, so this is statement 7. Statement 8 says, Buddha's mind also occurs down to the views of eternalism and nihilism. And this is in response to those who say that the Buddhas, when we speak of Buddhas and praise the Buddhas' awakened body, speech, and mind activities, these are merely kind of illusorily appearing things. So here, statement 8 says, no, Buddha's activities will go to the extent of those who believe in nihilism and those who believe in eternalism. Now, the Vajra statement, sounds kind of a little bit technical, right? But again, the point being made is, even to the extent of eternalism and nihilism, which are the two extremes, right, according to general understanding, it says even there, Buddha activities will also manifest. There's no place that Buddha activities don't manifest. So like that simple point that I was trying to make yesterday, that means good does exist. We have to train to be able to see the good that exists. So Khenpo Kunpal's commentary, the non-dual wisdom of the Buddha's mind knows the means for taming each of the limitless sentient beings according to their needs, so his activities are applied accordingly. At the lowest, his mind also occurs or is applied down to the level of those who have the views of eternalism and nihilism. So it is said in the Sutra of the Great Parinirvana, Buddha is not blind, but he appears to some as blind. He is not crippled, but appears as crippled. He is not a child, but shows the manner of a child. Thereby he ripens sentient beings. He performs the benefit of sentient beings by appearing as Indra or Brahma and appearing to some as a demon. However, worldly persons don't understand this. And it is said, I pay homage to the one who abides in supreme awakening, the one who, although is naturally and completely free from attachment and aversion, for the sake of beings, show anger to the angry ones, and the manner of great attachment to the desirous ones. So here it is saying, Buddha activities can appear even in places that you don't expect. It's to that extent. This is sort of like, not exactly, this is sort of like, how Christians say, God or Jesus, came not so much for the saints, but for the sinners. Sometimes we religious people, spiritual people, are so uptight about being religious and spiritual. Then we think, Buddha's God are here only for the saints, for those who behave, for those who are acceptable. But in fact, right, Buddhas particularly are most compassionate to the worst sinners, so to say. Yes, Judy.
Is this also to the point of we need, when we see people who are acting in such a way that is harmful to us, we see them as Buddha?
You can say this.
Of there, and then we are then mindful of what we need to do and not react. And I mean, is it that piece of it as well?
You could, but it's not mainly.
That's not the point of this.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't contradict that. That you can do for different reasons, you know. Everyone is Buddha, la la la.
Yeah.
Here is more about Buddha activities, you know. Where do they appear? They don't only just appear in Pure Lands, you know. They don't only appear in like forest monasteries, you know. They appear in the war zones. They appear in the ghettos, you know. They appear in the gambling dens, you know. They appear among sex workers, so to say, you know. They appear in refugee camps, you know. They appear in all the dark places in this world.
So it's for whomever is in that place to hopefully perceive whatever good.
I think more to the point, warning to those of us who think Buddhas only appear in pure places.
They're everywhere.
Yes, Buddha activities only appear in, you know, holy behavior.
Yeah.
Of course, this should not be a license, especially for teachers to, you know, because of their kleshas, up to no good, say, oh, you should think I'm doing Buddha activities. Therein is where some of the messy things also arise. Misapplying the teachings. Here is saying, don't be, at least one of the points is saying here for me, is saying, don't indulge in, you know, self-righteousness. Buddha activities pervade all, even to the extreme of nihilism and eternalism. And so in the Pure Land tradition of Japan, particularly, they emphasize, you know, normally we say, right, even virtuous, even non-virtuous, even beings with negative karma can be pulled, as May, to link to what May said earlier, referred to earlier. Even, and normally we say, you know, even beings with negative karma, right? Amitabha unfailingly is pulling them to his Pure Land, so to say. Right? Amitabha's love and compassion is so strong that even those with negative karma, he is finding ways to draw them, to his Pure Land. Then how much more, right, beings with good karma can be drawn to Amitabha's Pure Land. So that's the more common expression. That's the expression that you and I instantly recognize. Oh yes, right? And then we tend to think, right? Yeah, so I should be able to get it. Because after all, I'm a good person. Yeah, basically, you know. I'm a good person, basically, right? But one of the great Pure Land masters in Japan, Shinran, he said, even people with good karma can go to the Pure Land. How much more those with negative karma? Trent, you're like, wait, there's the Lutheran heresy. That's the Protestant heresy there. By the grace of God alone, right? So the point here is not like the grace of God, you know, we don't need to get into that. But here, why Shinran says such a strange thing? Again, some, you know, those who disagree with him say, you know, this will open the floodgates for people to engage in negative karma and think that they can get to the Pure Land. But Shinran's point is that the true object of the Buddha's compassion are sinners, as we would say, not saints. And if we are going to be Buddha-like, we need to also do that. But of course, in the real world, how you do that is not always easy. Yeah? So very simply, right now, a slight, very slight actually in the big scheme of things, like our meetings at Urban Dharma, we have had some disruptions. People come. But the challenging part there is like, how do we not allow certain behavior destroy the comfort that other people feel? Like, even if we understand this point, right? The true object of our love and compassion should be those that are most troubled. But how can we actualize that or walk the talk without the actions of these people turning everyone away from what we are able to offer? Not easy, And Buddha never said it was easy, but that motivation we should not lose. That perspective we should not lose. That we are here for the least among us, not for the saints, so to say. That motivation, that perspective we cannot lose. And then of course within that, then there is the reality of the relative world where boundaries and lines and all of that, we have to figure out, and we don't know how. Sometimes we make mistakes, sometimes we succeed, right? That's all part of our practice. So for me, 7-8 is reminding us this. There are more specific, internal kind of debate points, but we don't need to go into that. So the Buddha's mind reaches as far as the view of eternalists and nihilists. So here in Professor Zobish notes, he says, displaying anything that is needed. With skillful means, Buddhas teach even false views of non-Buddhists and the like. And when the trainee has become familiar with that, then the trainee is led higher and higher until they enter the actual path and finally attain awakening. The Dorshema goes beyond this account by providing more detail about all the non-Buddhist teachings that are Buddha in disguise. He mentions that if the Buddha cannot turn a mind through teaching the tenets, like the clear philosophies, he first helps with material things like food and clothing. So for those people who are not yet ready to be formally taught Dharma, Buddha start with food and clothing. So these are the missionaries. And maybe it's telling us Buddhists, hey, you should do that too. We're not very good at doing that. At most, I think many Buddhists are good at constantly giving food and things to like monks and nuns, and of course there are monks and nuns that need our support, especially in the West, actually. But in Asia, monks and nuns are very well fed, generally speaking. Of course, there are also poor areas where they're not. But where I live, some of my friends was like, monks and nuns are too well fed. Then we forget, that there are other people. So we should start with that. Then he says here, after that he engages in ordinary talk, provides quotations and reasoning, gradually leads the person to grow weary of samsara, guides that person through nihilism, awakens doubt in nihilism, guides through eternalism, non-Buddhist deities, and asceticism, until he finally leads the trainees. He, as in Buddha, leads the trainee on the path to the ultimate goal. As an example of the Buddha's ability to take up any position and thereby convert, change beings, the story of the conversion of the Gandharva Supriya is mentioned. According to this story, when the Buddha was staying in Jetavana in Shravasti, 500 Gandharvas, these are supernatural beings that are said to sing very beautiful songs. So 500 Gandharvas made musical offerings to the Buddha. When the Gandharva king Supriya heard the sound from afar, he challenged anyone to enter a contest with him. So the Buddha transformed himself into a Gandharva and defeated Supriya by playing far more beautifully than the Gandharva king. So one example of how Buddhas can make themselves completely in sync with again, Jesus hanging out with tax collectors, sex workers, those people who are condemned by society. They're saying Buddhas do that. So we should develop the ability to do that. So those who have done it for the least of us have done it for me, right? And the Buddha also said this, those who take care of the sick is taking care of me. So this is statement 8 about Buddha activities. So even though it seems to be talking about, right, over there, what happens, actually, even these statements are really guidance for over here, what you and I should aspire to, and then should actualize. So, statement 7 and 8 today. And so let's stop here. Also remember this dedication, we have changed the translation. Sublime, precious, venerable, and glorious root and lineage gurus, assembly of Idam deities, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas dwelling in the 10 directions, and all assemblies of Viras, Viranis, Yoginis, and Dakinis, please heed me. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by me and the entirety of samsara and nirvana and the inherent root of virtue not result in the 8 worldly dharmas, the 4 causes of samsara, and the resultant states of hearers and solitary realizers. And may all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, particularly those enemies who hate us, obstruct us, who harm those who create obstacles, maras who mislead, and their mara retinues have happiness, be separated from suffering, and quickly attain the unsurpassed, perfect, and precious Bodhi. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may we benefit sentient beings with body, speech, and mind. May the afflictive thoughts of attachment, aversion, ignorance, pride, and jealousy not arise in my mind stream. May thoughts of name, fame, gain, respect, and so forth in this life not arise for even a moment. With my mind stream moistened by love, compassion, and bodhicitta, may I become a virtuous spiritual friend with good qualities limitless as space. May I achieve the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. By the virtues collected in the 3 times by me and the entirety of samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, May I and all sentient beings quickly attain the unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Bodhi. Okay. Hasta mañana again, yeah.